Telling your team mistakes are okay is not enough. In fact, it could be the very reason why your team struggles to come back from mistakes, hesitate, or shut down in pressure situations and lose to teams that they shouldn't. I've worked with thousands of athletes as a mental performance coach, and as a head volleyball coach myself, I've seen it time and time again. Athletes who are told from their coaches, shake it off, next play, you're fine, actually are not fine, can't shake it off, and can't seem to stop focusing on the last play. If that sounds familiar, then you're in the right place. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how your efforts to normalize mistakes aren't working, why your athletes actually need a system to recover to get over mistakes in seconds. This is the number one skill that you can teach them to increase their mental toughness, and how you can teach and measure this skill in your own program. So let's get into it. Let's first talk about what you're probably noticing is not working to help your athletes get over mistakes. Saying, shake it off, next play, or you're fine. And let's be honest, these are not bad things to say to your athletes. I say these things to my athletes all the time. But the main problem with this is that telling isn't teaching. I wish this wasn't true. I wish I could just tell my athletes, do this, do that, and they would automatically just do it. Get over that mistake, pass this ball in this way, and I wouldn't have to do anything else. It'd be pretty easy. But unfortunately, that's not how it is. So that means that just like any other skill that you teach your athletes, you also have to teach them how to get over mistakes. For a long time, as the coach, did not teach this part of the game because I didn't really think it was my responsibility. I was teaching a lot of the physical skills, but they say 90% of the sport is mental. And so if you're in that boat where you're like, I don't know how to teach these skills, I know that they're important, but I don't have the time, I'm telling you right now, there are simple things that you can do that I'm going to be going over in this video that you can start right away to train your team's mental game so that it actually can pay off for them in those moments where they need it most. What athletes actually need in this moment is a process to recover, trained ahead of time, that is key, so it becomes automatic. This process to recover is super important because it is trained in moments where they actually don't need it, in lower stakes environments. And so, what I'm going to teach you is how we train our failure recovery system called the Snapback Routine. But the key to this, no matter what you choose to teach your athletes on how to respond to mistakes, it needs to be practiced ahead of time. And so, that means when they get into those pressure situations, it's automatic. They have a routine. You probably have seen some of the best athletes do this. Williams, after an error, she actually wipes her face with a towel. This isn't random, it's actually her reset cue. Kobe Bryant, he was known to take a deep breath, bite his jersey, and recenter himself. Okay. Michael Jordan, you rarely saw him react to mistakes because he had actually trained himself to refocus instantly. These athletes aren't just mentally tough, they have trained this skill. And this is a skill that you can actually train your athletes as well so that it becomes automatic for them. So, how do you teach this skill to your athletes? I'm going to go over three steps. First, figure out what you want to use for a failure recovery system. We call ours a snapback routine. If you want an in-depth guide on how to teach this to your players, head to coachfreetraining.com. I actually break all of this down so that you can know exactly how to teach this to your athletes. But overall, what it consists of are three things: a breath, a reset word, and a reset signal. Now, these three things are very intentional because when your athlete is in this state where she is making an error or something happens, she's kind of pushed out of what we call flow state or in the zone, then she's in this place where she potentially doesn't know how to respond. And so she will revert back to what the primal and biological response is. And that typically is freeze or fight or flight. Okay. So this is like her primal sympathetic nervous system responding to a threat in her environment. And you're like, threat? What threat? Well, there is a threat to her psychological safety when she makes a mistake, because at the subconscious level, she is now wondering, what is my coach going to do? Are they going to be mad at me? What are my teammates thinking of me? I just messed up in front of like my parents and people in the stands. And so that is actually a threat to her psychological safety. And that embarrassment is actually something that causes her fight or flight response to kick in. That's why you see your athlete shutting down, hesitating, now she's tipping or playing it safe instead of actually being aggressive. And so without a way to respond, that's what she's going to naturally resort to. And so the breath is actually a really intentional way for her to engage her parasympathetic nervous system so that she can calm down a bit and get to the present moment. The reset word is actually determined ahead of time. Obviously, all of this is determined ahead of time, but her reset word is actually based on how she wants to feel in that moment. And it's found based on successful playing experiences. And it's something that she's connected to. So it's custom to her. Every athlete in my program and every athlete inside our mental training programs for teams have their own custom snapback routine that includes their own custom reset word. So this word isn't something that you just give them and say, like, hey, choose this word, choose the word calm, brave, fierce. Those could be good reset words, but it has to connect to her. It has to be personal to her and what she wants in that moment. The reset signal is that third piece, and that is something to help ground her in the present moment. So it's like adjusting a hair tie, adjusting a sock. If she has time to step on the line and come back to her spot on the court, all of those would be good reset signals to help ground her in the present moment. Now, if you coach a sport that is ongoing and there's not enough time to do that, by the way, this takes like 2 seconds. But if there's not even 2 seconds, just the breath or just the reset word is enough to help get them back into the present moment. So, again, if you want more of an in depth way on how we actually workshop this, go to coachfreetraining.com. And that's where I give you the resources on how to actually teach this to your team. The second piece to this is that it has to be practiced. It has to be. Sometimes we get frustrated as coaches because we're like, oh, well, I said this one time. I said mistakes are okay. I said mistakes are learning opportunities. I said shake it off, next play. Mistakes are how you learn. And then they go out there and they make a mistake and we're like freaking out on the sideline and they get pulled out and they don't actually like have any reps in this area. They don't have a rep to fall back on how to actually reset. So this actually has to be practiced in practice. And so when I teach the snapback routine, I introduce it and we workshop it. And then every water break after that, for that first practice, we are doing it. And a water break is not like a stressful situation, but they're just building that capacity. They're getting their reps in. We also create it like a station sometimes in part of pre practice. Like you're going to practice your snapback routine at this station. There are times in practice where it gets tough and I put them in difficult situations, but I remind them of their snapback routine. So it has to be trained ahead of time. It can't just be something that's relied on in pressure situations because it won't come through for them in that situation, unfortunately. All right. The last piece of this is that it can be measured. A lot of times I hear like mental skills are hard because they can't be measured like physical skills. Well, this is one you can actually measure. Your athletes can reflect right now on how long it takes them to recover from mistakes. This is something that you can help them reflect on. They probably are aware of it themselves, but it also can be something that's very obvious in film. If they watch themselves compete, they're probably noticing that when they make a mistake, maybe their body language changes and it changes for a while. And then the next couple plays after, they're not playing like themselves or they're hesitating. That's actually something that can be measured. They can say, it takes me like 5 minutes to get over a mistake. Or for some athletes, if they're really honest with themselves, they're like, I don't get over my mistake for the whole game. It's not even until the next game. And that actually can be something that can be measured over the course of the season. After introducing a failure recovery method or the snapback routine, now they can reflect and say, okay, in this match, how long on average do I think it took me to get over a mistake? Was it fast? Was it, within seconds, or was I still dwelling on it over and over? And so that is why it's really cool because your athletes can actually measure the effectiveness of this and you can see it as a coach. Like, are we as a team moving on faster? How is our recovery from mistakes? Now, if you want other tips on how to do this, how you can actually train this in your practice, make sure to check out our video on how you can help your athletes recognize when they have been kind of bumped out of flow state before it gets too late, because there is a point where it becomes a little bit too late and it's really hard to come back down. So that is in our next video that you can check out, and I'll see you there.